Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Friday night Bible study. We're in 2 Chronicles, the 11th chapter, and we just thank God for allowing us to be here again, to be able to present His Word to you. Thank you for continuing to give the cause of Christ and the furtherance of the gospel message, the good news of Jesus Christ, that we continue to share through our social media, especially and specifically through this complex pandemic time. And so continue. Don't forget about your church. Still have things going on. We still maintain facilities and those types of things. So thank you for those tithe offerings and sacrificial givings. Our Bible studies have meant anything to you, and maybe you don't necessarily belong to this church. If you'd like to send an offering, certainly do that. It would be a blessing to us, and maybe even a blessing to you. Also, tonight we're going to be somewhat abbreviated because I want to respect your New Year's time. We're going to be doing some things. I don't want to take up too much of your time tonight. We will make sure that the content is good, like it usually is. So time might be short, but the content of that time will be a blessing to all of us. So we're going to start out as we usually start out. And again, I want to wish you a happy New Year. Yay. Happy New Year. Continue to pray for in your prayers, continue to pray for Sister Michelle McWatt's mother, that she continues to have issues, for God to make a way for her to do all she needs to do. And their mom's family friend, Joanne, pray for her, who's dealing with leukemia. So we want to pray for that. Sister Harry Gray's family in Louisiana. We want to pray for the responders, family, and friends dealing with health concerns. Teresa Newsom and Anthony and Larry, her sons, pray for them as they continue to battle things that they battle through. Leukemia and a brain aneurysm that happened some time ago. However, it left some residual things that have to be dealt with. So keep that in your prayers. Andy and Diane Santa Maria, as Diane recovers from injuries, recent car accident. Pray for Maria Dwyer's son Trevor, her family, and her family in Costa Rica. Also continue to pray for the homeless, unemployed, those who have mental challenges, especially during this time of year, this season. Pray for our staff who is here, our preachers, teachers, and our reachers. Continue to pray for them. Those dealing with COVID and all workers on the front line, we want to pray for them. Pray for Nashville as they continue to recover and find out about what happened when the bombing there. For Kathy Burbish, keep her in the prayers. Walter Kimball, also in the prayer. Chris and Mona McFadden, keep them in your prayers. Sure that the process is somewhat diminished. However, the whole process of dealing with what they have to deal with has been traumatic, to say the least. Pray for the Duncan family. Deacon Duncan's sister passed away. Dorothy Louise, keep them in the prayers. Shaka, Sister Freya Johnson's brother, keep him in prayer. And others, trustee board, for Honor Jackson and his family, keep them in your prayers. For the Tim, Michelle Watt, of course, our deacon, Deacon Smith, keep them in prayer. Also, and Sister Mary Smith, deaconesses, Reverend Johnson, Sister Duncan, Brother Duncan, already has a prayer for the family, but also for the boards, the deacon board, the deaconess board, usher team, and all the different musicians and stuff who are still awaiting at the starting gate for the call, for the gun to sound, for the future back. So we want to continue to keep all of this in prayer. We look forward to a time of being able to worship together, but we just believe that God is letting us know how important it is to go to church. So we're taking it for granted, and now we're facing it. So we're going to begin our studies with scripture by Sister Maria Dwyer and prayer by Brother Jim Kennedy.
I'm going to be reading Hebrews chapter 10, verses 32 through 39. Remember those earlier days after you had received the light, when you stood your ground in a great contest in the face of suffering. Sometimes you were publicly exposed to insult and persecution. At other times you stood side by side with those who were so treated. You sympathized with those in prison and joyfully accepted the confiscation of your property because you knew that you yourselves had better and lasting possessions. So do not throw away your confidence. It will be richly rewarded. You need to persevere so that when you have done the will of God, you will receive what he has promised. For in just a very little while, he who is coming will come and will not delay. But my righteous one will live by faith, and if he shrinks back, I will not be pleased with him. But we are not of those who shrink back and are destroyed, but of those who believe and are saved. A blessing be to the hearing and reading of God's most holy word.
Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this as the end of the year comes about. Lord, we thank you that you brought us through, Lord. We look forward to the next year, Lord. We ask for your guidance and your wisdom, Lord, in the upcoming year, Lord. Lord, we also pray for all those prayer requests that the pastor mentioned, Lord. We lift them up to you, Lord. You know the needs of each one that you mentioned, Lord. We pray that your will be done in their lives, Lord, and that they will have peace as they go through each situation they've gone through, Lord. And Lord, we thank you for your many blessings. We thank you for your trials and tribulations, Lord, that we go through. Those are faith, Lord. We thank you for just your love, Lord, that you love each one of us so much, Lord. Came down and died for our sins, Lord, that we may have a way with eternal life with you, Lord. We thank you, and we pray for this lesson tonight, Lord, that this word penetrate our hearts, Lord, that we may grow in your wisdom. And we give you the praise, we give you the honor and glory always. And we pray this in the mighty name of Jesus, the Christ, the Son of the living God. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. We see here in chapter 11 we know there were some issues with Rehoboam giving, taxing the people further, and Jeroboam not caring to hear that. And so that began allowing the split, beginning of the split, the kingdom. United up to Solomon. After that, it's a divided kingdom. And so, in chapter 11, the first four verses might very well be a part of the previous chapter 10. As we look at it, we'll see that Judah was mobilizing itself for a civil war. And it says, and when Rehoboam was come to Jerusalem, he gathered of his house of Judah and Benjamin 184,000 chosen men, which were warriors to fight against Israel, that he might bring the kingdom again to Rehoboam. In other words, you see now the kingdom is not under Rehoboam, and so you see how David, during his reign, only in 2 Samuel 24:9, he only used 500,000 men he mobilized. Here is 3 times that much, and then some, 180,000. And so he was mustering up this army to go and take the kingdom. Determine that there would be bloodshed, perhaps even the loss of the kingdom. He wasn't guaranteed to win. Rather than him speak kindness to the people when they needed it. Remember, all he had to do was listen to the wise counsel of his elders and speak kindness. And he said, these people, he wouldn't have had to think about it. But now, here he is, and the problem is multiplied. It's complex now. When it could have been simple, now it's rough. And so he was preparing the kingdom. Let me look at something. I had 1 Kings 12. Well, yeah, a lot of times you can see some parallel verses in 1 Kings 12, 21 and 22. 1 Kings 12, 21. And when Rehoboam was come to Jerusalem, he assembled all the house of Judah with the tribe of Benjamin, 180,000 chosen men, which were warriors to fight against the house of Israel, to bring the kingdom again to Rehoboam, the son of Solomon. And then in another parallel verse, in verse 2 of stay there at 1 Kings chapter 12, but also go back to 2 Chronicles chapter 11, verse 2. It says, but the word of the Lord came to Shimei, the man of God, saying. And so when you see in 1 Kings, here it is. The chapter 12, verse 22. But the word of the Lord came unto Shimei, the man of God, saying. So here's what God said to the man of God. And don't take that lightly. A lot of times, even in our country, we don't listen to people of God. We want to listen to everybody else, but not God's chosen people. And so I know it's not in line with our norm, with the things that we think is fair. But God is God, and God is more than fair. And our sense of fair is always somewhat skewed, depending on the circumstance. Would it be fair? And I heard this presented some time ago. You might have heard me say it before. But if when Michael Jordan was playing with the Bulls, and I think Phil Jackson might have been the coach, they were down by 1 point, and like 10 seconds left on the clock. And who would you want the ball to go to? Michael Jordan, of course. Everybody would say Michael Jordan. But if somebody on the bench said, hey, that's not fair. He's played more time than me. He's gotten more shots than I have. It's not fair. So, and any good coach would tell him to sit down, go sit back at the bench, or go to the locker room. Get out of here. You're not going to do it. So our sense of fair is relative. But God is always good. He's always righteous. And whether you agree with it or not, or like it or not, this is his word. This is his will. This is his way. And so this man of God was telling the people what thus saith the Lord. He says, speak unto Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, king of Judah, and to all Israel in Judah and Benjamin, saying. So he said, speak to them all. This is what I want you to tell them. Thus saith the Lord, ye shall not go up nor fight against your brother. Return every man to his house, for this thing is done for me. And good part is they obeyed the words of the Lord and returned from going against Jeroboam. So here it is. You have war, a king ready to go to war, ready to take the whole country back for himself. And God said, no, don't do it. You're not doing this for you. It's for me. So again, same thing. When you see in there, it said that because the first thing, the king wanted to, and God said, you shall not. There are times when you shall, and there are times when you shall not. And that's the bottom line. And it's not God, it's not debatable. You can't go to God and say, well, God, that's not right. Everybody else is doing it. It's only fair that they, have the same thing as we have. There are those times when, yes, they should, but this is one of the times he said, you shall not. Nor fight against who? Your brother, your brothers. It's a family feud. Over there now, it's a family feud. This is family fighting against family. Brother, cousins. They just turned into nations, but they're still family. Again, nation after nation, it's family fighting against family. That's what happened. People get caught in the middle. That's what happens. We fight our brother. I hope one day we quit fighting each other. And return to your house. He said, go on back home. Go back home. I didn't do this for you. It's done for me. So he rebuked him, the king. He commanded him not to fight because this division was of God. And so they obeyed and kept the peace. So that's what happened. They returned and they obeyed the words of the Lord. They returned from going against Jeroboam. The 10 tribes being continued as in. Now, from now on, you barely hear about in 2 Chronicles. You barely hear about the northern kingdom or the kings thereof, because you're dealing with the southern kingdom, Judah. So that split is more than that, specifically in this particular book. And so let's see how he fortifies. And Rehoboam dwelt in Jerusalem and built cities for defense in Judah. So all of Judah, he built cities in defense. It wasn't that he was going to go to war, but now he has to defend himself. Because on the north, there's Israel. On the south, there's Egypt. Those are the two main problems that he was concerned with. And he was more concerned with Egypt than he was with Israel. Because a lot of the cities that were fortified on the south and the west side of Judah. I think there was only 3 in the north. The other one were in the west and the south. So because those were entrances for Egypt to be able to come in. So he built even Bethlehem, Etham, and Tekoa. And when we look at these on map, Bethlehem was a fort for which it was fitted by its tolerably high situation on a rocky eminence. And that's true. I've been to Bethlehem, and it's sitting on the top of a hill. And a lot of hills around. So, yeah, Tekoa is a hilltop covered with ruins south of Bethlehem. So, another hilltop covered with ruins, just south of Bethlehem. 7, he talks about Beth-sur, Shoko, and Adjah. Beth-sur, a strong position about 5 miles north of Hebron, on the route to Jerusalem. Okay, and it played. If you ever heard about the wars of the Maccabean revolt, it played a very important part of that war. And then Soko is what it's called. There's no doubt that the same Soko, which is mentioned in Joshua chapter 15, verse 35, and 1 Samuel 17 and 1. We can go to 1 Samuel chapter 17 and 1 and take a look at it and see. Yeah. So it says in 1 Samuel 17 and 1, now the Philistines gathered together with their armies to battle, and were gathered together at Shoko, which belonged to Judah, and pitched between Shoko and Azekah in Ephes-Dammim. So Shoko was a place about 15 miles southwest of Jerusalem. So it was about 15 miles southwest of Jerusalem. Again, fortifying the southern and the western border. And then he talks about Adjah near Shoko. Again, we'll go ahead and look at Joshua. We looked at before, mentioned before, Joshua 15, verse 35. So these places are close. Jeremiah, Adjah, Shoko, Azekah. So these were all cities. Adjah. Looking for it. Yeah. So this was a city with a village adjutant. So there were cities with villages, and these were the southern cities. And he goes on to mention more. Gad conquered by David in 1 Chronicles 18:1. In Solomon's reign, a native king Achish is mentioned in 1 Kings 2:39. He is to be regarded as not as an independent monarch, but as one of the many over whom Solomon reigned. So the exact location of Gad is not known, but they believe it's near the area of Soko and Adullam. And then Marshall is mentioned in Joshua 15:44. Among those of low and flat country. It's a low and flat country. It appears in the invasion of Zerah, the Ethiopian, in 2 Chronicles 14:9, and again in the Maccabean Wars. Also, they mention Ziph in the territory of Judah, probably intended that which lay in the hill country, famous in the history of David, in 1 Samuel 23, verses 14-24, and also in 1 Samuel chapter 26, verses 2-25. The exact site appears in the modern Tel Ziph, about 3 miles southeast of Hebron. And we'll do a couple more of these and save some for next week also. Adoram, verse 9, Adoram, which is only mentioned here. So it appears to be in the same vicinity as Marshall, which it is frequently coupled in the historical writing of a historical writer called Josephus. And then Lachish, and Azekah. Lachish and Azekah, which is the neighborhood of Soko Adullam, and it lay between Jerusalem and Elotharpolis, and then the other one, the site is not known or identified. This Azekah. Well, we're going to go ahead and do 10 because that's the last of the cities being fortified. Zorah. Now Zorah and Adullam, now Yala, lay further north than the other cities here mentioned. They were both in the territory originally assigned to Dan in Joshua 19 and 41, but afterwards absorbed into Judah. Zorah commanded an important valley, Wadi Surah, which led up to the hills of the low country, while Adullam was a border city between Ephraim, which was sometimes reckoned in First Chronicles 6, verses 66 to 69. So, Zorah and Adullam both, and when I mentioned Joshua 19, I will say 19, 40 and 41, Joshua. Because Zorah and Adullam originally belonged to the tribe of Dan, so after the migration of the Danites to the north, northern Palestine, in Judges 18 and 1, they were probably occupied by the Benjamites and thenceforth reckoned to the tribe of Benjamin. So it gives you an idea, and if you have a map or can find a map somewhere, look these cities up and kind of see how this fortified structure is. It's important. Now we might say, well, yeah, but these are cities, but listen. How does that apply to us? We have to build fortified rationales, fortified ideologies and thoughts and theology in our heart and in our minds if you want to continue to be strong in the Lord. Things have to be fortified in you. Things have to be protected. Our protector is the Word of God. Our protector is God. But we have to make sure that things are in place so that when the enemy tries to attack, we're ready. We're not caught off guard. So that's the importance of when we look at the Old Testament, we see cities like this, fortified cities. Then how does that apply to me today? There have to be some fortified things in my life, some fortified theology, some fortified points, in some boundaries set, borders set that you want to go past. And so these are the important things. We will stop right there, return next week in verse 11. And we've gotten through the really good part. And to me, this is exciting stuff. I know it sounds this, that, and the other, but it's exciting to see. Here, after Solomon's son is still building stuff. Building is one of the key, not tearing down. So we thank God for you here today, for this time of just being able to study the Bible. Let's pray. Father, we thank you tonight. We thank you for your blessings. We thank you for allowing us to be here. Thank you for this even shortened version of our Bible study. It gives us something to do, something to work on. And we thank you for loving us and keeping us. Keep us safe from hurt, harm, or danger. And God, protect us as only you can. And help us to fortify in us those things, those strongholds that you need to have in our life, those footholds that we need to have in our life so that we can be able to access your word. Like the psalmist says, thy word have I hid in my heart that I might not sin against thee. And so we give you praise and honor and glory. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank God. God bless you. Happy New Year. And we'll see you again soon. God bless.